Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Without Context podcast. I am Decavolty, joined here by SharkyHat, of course, and we've got X back. X is back in
Hello,
the
how you
house.
doing?
Uh, we were going to talk about, we were going to talk originally about like some tall tales that have been, our favorite tall tales. However, I don't think there's a tall tale as big and as wide and as like bullshitting that other than the last few weeks of AEW ever since All Out, and we'll get to that in a little bit.
There's been some high points and some low points across the whole board, it seems like.
Mhm.
And
And a whole lot of drama in between.
a whole lot of drama
Oh
in
yeah.
between and some just weird booking decisions. And it's just been a really weird 2 weeks of wrestling uh these last few weeks. So
Mhm.
normally, we try to change things up with a different guest, but didn't really have a guest set aside this week after everything with AEW happened. So of course we're gonna call X back to the show because this is a mess of a professional wrestling scene right now.
Well, we've also continually been saying like, oh yeah, we're gonna bring guests back. Well, we're bringing
Yeah.
guests back.
The one consistent guess, because wrestling is a consistent thing where stuff keeps happening. Um,
Oh man.
so for the people who are in the know for wrestling, the last few weeks we've had Clash at the Castle, we've had All Out for AEW, and we've had the first of, I guess we're probably a month and a half now into Triple H running things.
Yeah, we're about a good 6 weeks into Triple H, running the entire show on WWE, both on the Raw and SmackDown side.
Yeah, and I guess for this, we're probably going to start with the elephant in the room. What the fuck happened Sunday night, 2 weeks, not this weekend, but the previous weekend, with CM Punk at the whole media scrim that they had where he basically shit on his whole company.
All right, so let's start with what actually happened that we know.
Yeah.
So, CM Punk at the after All Out, where he just won the title maybe like 3 hours ago, got on the media scrum and kind of just deflected everyone's questions and started like went on a tirade about like Hangman Adam Page, the Elite, Nick Jackson, Kenny Omega,
Cole Cabana.
Colt Cabana
His
for no
mom's
reason, who
bank
doesn't
account.
even work there anymore. You know what? That's fucked up. I'm gonna go on my tirade here. Clearly, CM Punk is not from a background where like family is important. Because if I came into money, I would be taking care of my family. Like if I had the money that they made, I'd be taking care of my family. Like
Yeah.
maybe I wouldn't have them on my bank account, but that's for a different reason. But
So-
I would still do my best to take care of them. That's bullshit. Fuck you, CM Punk.
Yeah, so-
Fuck you, Phil.
The thing is, he went on a tirade about Cole Cabana unprovoked, I believe. And so to sum up the story, CM Punk and Cole Cabana have a history on the indie scene, and then they have a history more recently with lawsuits and stuff like that. And for a long time, people thought that he was the reason why Cole Cabana hasn't been on TV, but Cole Cabana is still with AEW. He's just around.
Colt Cabana's in Ring of Honor right now.
Yeah, it's AEW adjacent.
Sure. Just
Yeah, so your top guy gets the world title and then proceeds to shit on a bunch of coworkers in front of live cameras. And that's not even the biggest story that came out. I mean, that made headlines, but then what it followed was the fact that apparently there was a backstage kerfluffle, we'll call it, between him and the Elite, who are some of the people that he called out.
We just gonna call that a squabble.
And both sides have their own
squabble.
Both sides have their own stories. CM Punk's side is they kicked in the door and were pretty aggressive, and then the Elite side is, they just went to talk to him, and Kenny Omega tried to save a dog, and it's like this whole weird thing that happened. And the immediate follow-up wouldn't have been known until Wednesday, because that's when their flagship TV show is. The fallout from this was all the titles have been stripped off of everybody involved. 7 or 8 people are confirmed to be suspended. But the thing is with CM Punk, even now talking about this, we don't know what his status is.
He's injured. That's what we know.
We know
Yeah,
he's
apparently-
injured, but his employment status is still like completely unknown. Is like something like this, like a lot of people feel he shouldn't be with the company anymore, which I feel like he shouldn't. This was unprofessional in front of cameras, and you can tell just by Tony Khan's face, like this wasn't a planned thing. So
I want to compare this, what CM Punk did, and Tony Khan's reaction to the later on in the scrum when Swerve in My Glory was there, and he was like, "Oh," and they were talking, like doing a back and forth, the tete-a-tete, and like they were talking about, "Oh yeah, the Acclaimed. That might be a good match." And you know, they were bouncing back and forth with Tony. Like that felt more planned than what CM Punk was doing.
yeah, I mean, you see Tony Khan in like some clips, like just downing like drinks, like trying not to look nervous about it. Because I think at this point, CM Punk's just kind of going off on his own.
Yeah, and you could tell during that media scrum that Tony Khan just looked like a man who just completely lost control of the situation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely lost control of the situation. He was just sitting there like with these surprised looks on his face, and he was just kind of like going like this from time to time, and
he was just looking confused. Like he wasn't. Like, he was like, "What's happening?
Like, why is he doing this right now?" And I don't know, man. For me, it was CM Punk just kind of handled this situation very childish, in a very childish manner. Okay,
it's ironic because he was like, "Oh, I work with kids."
Yeah, and like I said, and let's compare this to like Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle for a second, just to go off, just for a brief comparison. Okay, Seth Rollins did an interview where he talked about his issues with Matt Riddle and how his now ex-wife was body shaming his wife Becky Lynch and several others on the roster. But Seth Rollins being a professional, they worked their issues out. They went out at Clash of the Castle, had a really good match. I really feel like that should have been highlighted and how to professionally handle people you don't like in the workplace. And the way CM Punk handled it, it just seems like he just had a very selfish motive for doing so. And he just wanted to shit on and bury everybody he could under the sun when he could have just not mentioned it at all.
It's like, man, you have the top title. You're the top guy right now.
What more do you want?
You don't need to bury the people who helped build the company that you're now on the top of. Like,
and on top of that, burying people that you might have to possibly work with at a later date. So,
and that's why I feel like
not understanding all this in general.
Yeah, that's why I feel like it's not a work, because there's nothing that would indicate at all that CM Punk and Kenny Omega were down the line at some point. It was CM Punk, MJF, because this whole thing overshadowed MJF's amazing return after months of just silence being off of TV.
Not even silence, just silence on social media.
Yeah, just showing up with a goon squad and getting the chance to have a title shot down the line. Like, that whole thing was just overshadowed by whatever the fuck CM Punk decided to do. And now we are not going to probably get that CM Punk MJF match. We're probably building more towards a Moxley MJF match now. So
that's okay. It's not going to have 2 years of payoff, but it's going to be all right.
It's not going to have the same story impact unless they build off the whole promo earlier where it's like Moxley's an ex-WWE guy and MJF's like trying to get the belt onto an AEW guy. Like, they can go that route and it would help because you've built Moxley up to be this wrestler who's just like, it's really hard to put him down, but now MJF has a squad behind him who can, get involved in everything too. So it's a more feasible build, because I don't if CM Punk's injured, then it's just not going to happen.
And on top of that was just a brilliant way, to have Stokely just go around in the background, just setting up this, secret goon squad for the return of MJF. And that was a really good
building that up for weeks.
Yeah, it was really building up for weeks. Like, he came back, handed W. Morrissey a card. He recruited Lee Moriarty months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he's just been there, like little conniving behind the
just a little devil behind the scenes.
And that's something that I love right now. AEW compared to WWE is the payoff for long-term interests,
long-term storytelling. Yeah,
because it's stuff like this. You're like, why is it Stokely? Why is it all these guys? It's like, oh, he's actually just been recruiting them for like a month and a half now. Like,
Yeah. Like he did what the fuck are their name? Like the gun boys.
Gun Club.
The gun club or the ass
The ass
boys.
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 But moving on, but like that's the whole thing. So like the whole championship, the whole world title scene is kind of out of whack now because CM Punk's out injured. Status with the company afterwards kind of
Up in the air.
unknown. Like, is he going to come back and have to make like a huge public like apology, or is he going to have to like take his licks and lose a few like big matches before he can start getting his spot back? Like,
I think what's gonna happen there is because a lot of the feeling is that he's just not with the company anymore, from what I understand. But if it's one of those things where it's this is one of the things I don't like about like the dirt sheets where we get all our news from is that the way they're written, it's like, well, yes, that those are the only two options right now. Either he's not with the company anymore, or he has to make big strides to reform. Like, yes, those are the only two options that are there. Shut the fuck up, Fightful Select.
Exactly. And sometimes dirt sheets love to embellish and sometimes fabricate news for clicks and likes. So you got to keep that in consideration as well. Okay, there were a couple of, as a matter of fact, there were a couple of there were like a couple of Twitter bots, spewing out fake news about AEW. One of them being like Thunder Rosa asked for a release, but that was debunked by her husband.
Debunked and everything.
Yeah, in every way. So you gotta watch out for those at times too. You can't really take stock into what these accounts say on Twitter.
Yeah.
The other thing that sucks about them is that for all the spewing that CM Punk did, I think he's completely on the money. Where he's like, my EVPs need to stop going to these dirt sheets and telling them things. Like, I think there's a way to work with these dirt sheets where you're not like talking about drama. I think there's ways to go about it to sell pay-per-views instead of like spewing drama.
But see, that's the thing. He calls out the EVP specifically for going to the dirt sheets, and there's no indication that they've even done that. Like, I know they like probably look at him, but the fact that he's like,
sure,
I know for a fact it's the Bucks and Kenny, they're telling everybody our bullshit. It's like, no, you don't know that for a fact. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I think the thing I will say about that is that what's it called? What's the saying? A hit dog will holler.
Yeah.
So like if he's so adamant that, hey, guys, shut the fuck up about the backstage stuff, then maybe absolutely we should just turn the screws on that and see what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Okay, and not to put the whole onus on Punk for this whole situation, but like I said,
I know I am.
For the, I mean, I'm gonna put a good amount of it on Punk because, like I said, the way he handled it was really shitty and childish. But at the same time, I've been saying this for quite a bit now that Tony Khan really does need proper management in his company. Someone that can actually handle talent relations without bias, someone that can actually help him with day-to-day operations, and not have, his EVPs booking themselves to win, titles and such all the time, when in a way where it just kind of drags down the product. I do kind of agree with that. But like I said,
he needs an HR guy. He doesn't need Daniels.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, just continuing off of that, it's like because of the Elite's involvement in this and their alleged involvement of like, being the ones to go to the dressing room to start whatever extreme the confrontation was, even if it was just to talk to him or if it was Punk's story where they kicked down the door kind of thing. It ended up with them getting stripped of the titles less than 4 days after getting them, and these were the titles that were held on to until Kenny came back.
They're specifically for Kenny.
It's just like, that's not a good like debut of these titles.
No.
But then they kind of gave us the banger of a Death Triangle and Best Friends for the new Trios champions.
It's a really good match.
Which is unfortunate because this was, I think, the day right after they released Malachi Black from his contract. Mostly citing the mental health issues, I believe is what the reasoning was. Is I don't think he's in a good place mentally because he also talked about how needing back surgery, like he almost lost his ability to like wrestle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's
I
just
mean,
kind
that's
of the
harrowing.
yeah, and it's just kind of the frustration of I guess creative. He seems like a very creative person with a specific goal in mind. But
Mhm.
at the time, you can't have that full creative control. So I just think it's kind of another factor that's added on to whatever is going on with him. I know that they
Uh,
released him with what they called uh,
Non-compete.
that's a conditional release. All of his stuff is still on AEW.com. You can still find him on the roster.
Still has his shirts there.
He still is advertising shirts for AEW on his Twitter. What I think is the thing is that I think they're giving him a no compete, so he's forced to get the help that he needs instead of just leaving AEW for 6 months, wrestling other places that aren't a major competition, and then whatever. Until, he's gone from the website, until he's gone from the store, I'm not going to believe he's gone from the company.
I will say that it's still a shrewd business decision. Like,
I mean,
yes, they can bill it as like, yes, get the help you want, but also they absolutely do not want Aleister Black back in WWE.
Yeah, because I mean, he's also less than 1 year, or maybe just over 1 year into a 5-year contract he signed. So it's like, I mean, they do have some bargaining power if they've already also paid him a certain amount to get that contract,
Yeah.
So I'm not a businessman. Like, I don't know the contracts that everybody signed, but nothing on AEW is showing that he's gone from the company. He's not moved to like an alumni section. He's not taken out of the store. So they still have some right to his image.
Also, Black is still getting matches on AEW Dark.
Yeah.
And
I really feel like
I saw
yeah, I really feel like
something today, just real quick. I saw that, I think it was a day or two ago. I saw a headline that AEW has finally trademarked House of Black as a stable name.
yeah.
Yeah, so they're still investing in him.
I'm thinking that if he is gone, they're stopping him from taking that moniker to another company now, and they're going to keep it on Buddy, Brody, and Julia. So,
Which is a smart move.
Yeah.
But
it is, like I said, a shrewd business decision.
I wish he would have stayed. I would have loved to see him and House of Black get another shot of just being like, hey, you're popular. Here's a title match. Throw him against the rivals of Death Triangle from months ago. Let him put on a banger 3-man, give House of Black the trios titles, Instead, they gave it to Death Triangle, guys who have been with them since day one. It rewarded Pac. He's now the first double champion in AEW as a trios champion and the All-Atlantic champion, so man's got his dues finally.
Yeah, good for him.
And I mean, he's been there since day one too, and he's been a hell of a worker even through the pandemic era.
He was like one of the first 5 people signed to AEW when they announced the company in 2019. Because I remember that press conference they had in Jacksonville, and he had came up there, he said his bit, and I'm like, yeah, he's definitely a day one. He's worked his ass off ever since leaving WWE. I would love to see him move up eventually into the TNT title picture and eventually the AEW World title picture once again.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm just happy he's just getting his dues, and it's
go ahead.
And as far as Malachi Black goes, whatever is going on with him, I just wish him the best.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want him, I don't want this business, consuming his mind to the point where it just destroys him mentally. So,
because the whole thing with that is that he was unhappy with his character direction. They apparently talked about it. They said that they got all the creative stuff smoothed over. And then they, like the day after, or 2 days after, said like, hey, we're releasing him. So I'm wondering, like, is it a release? Or is it just like, hey, take the time you need to get everything, in order. We're not releasing you out of your contract. You just don't have to be committed to us for this time. You don't have to.
It's probably more like a leave of absence, if anything.
Until I see otherwise, I think it's more of just a leave of absence because nothing on their end indicates that they've removed him from their company.
Yeah, correct.
And
leave of absences are far more common in non-wrestling programs.
And I mean, that's all somebody has to say too. It's like, hey, Alistair or Malachi, here, Tom. His name's like Tom something, I think. So just like, hey, take a break. And then somebody overhears that and it's like, oh, they've released him.
Yeah. That's probably what it is.
And that's probably what it is. And like we'll get to Clash at the Castle in a bit, but the aftermath from all of this, from losing CM Punk to injury, to the elites not being involved, to Tony having to vacate 2 sets of titles, the man put on a hell of a show with his homegrown talent on Wednesday. Like, Tony Khan came out like guns blazing and is like, you know what? Here's everybody that started with us, and we're going to remind them that why we picked them. Wardlow made the TNT title feel relevant again. You know, just Death Triangle and Best Friends put on a hell of a show. MJF in a promo battle with Moxley. Like, it was a hell of a show.
And just watching MJF just go from this awkwardly wild face reaction
That was
to just
so
being
good.
the biggest asshole heel on the
He's
planet.
so
again
good at
he's
what
just so
he
good at
does.
his job.
He's so good at eliciting a response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of us are like, yeah, no, that's bullshit. We're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I'm like, there it is.
And the thing is,
There it
like,
is.
we know he's a shit talker because we know he can't take the AEW title to WWE if there's no like business partnership. So it's like he's like the perfect like blend of like, I believe my own bullshit as a wrestler, so I'm gonna make
Yeah.
everybody else believe it. But he's so good. Like, he's such a great heel.
Like, he just has full control of the audience, and I have not seen anything like that in decades. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And the man was gone for 5 months.
Yeah.
Like, I think, and there was conspiracy theories that he was like nursing an injury or something, which is why the Wardlow match was a squash. And all that.
Possible.
So it's like, hey, we're gonna make this feel real. Let him go out, do his promo, and then he'll take the time off to heal from whatever leg is going on.
Mhm.
But or if Tony Khan's just like, go away for 5 months, you'll keep getting your paycheck.
I
Just
mean, yeah.
for the sake of a story is
don't have to tell me
insane.
twice.
Is insane commitment to that story though.
Me, a worker, don't have to fucking tell me that twice. Bye.
Yeah, it's just, if your boss comes in and it's like, hey, we're going to get a story going for you in 5 months. Just fucking go away. I'll keep
fuck
paying
off.
you. And then the day of that return, the guy he's supposed to be feuding with fucks up like Punk did.
Uh-huh.
It's like, I think pretty sure that's why Tony was freaking out, because he's like, I'm going to have to react to this.
Yep.
Like, I'm going to
yeah,
have to
he
do
had no
something
choice.
here, and I had a plan, and this is shitting all over the plan.
He just fucked it all up. What am I supposed to do?
Has CM Punk said anything on social media since then?
He doesn't use Twitter a lot.
Mm-mm.
Plus, he's also turned off all replies to his tweets. So, and the
Oh,
man,
and being the elite went on hiatus too.
that's
Yes.
what gets me is the backstage stuff, or even like the not like really important stuff. It's just the cool like story building elements. The fact that the Bucks canceled that too. And then like you have the reports of Kenny and the Bucks are sending out like feelers to WWE for when the contract expires, which a part of me feels like the Bucks will never go to WWE. I think they like their freedom creatively too much. Plus, I don't think the traveling they'd take part in, like all the traveling that WWE does.
Mm-mm.
It's just they don't strike me as the kind of guys who would want to be on the road, 5 days a week.
No, for sure.
For what, 48 weeks a year?
Mhm.
Like, unless they get that sweet Cody deal where they get their own bus. So,
The Cody Mobile.
and yeah, so I think it's just more Tony and AEW walk this line of what is real and what is a work very well. Like almost like criminally well, because I can't differentiate anymore with
So
AEW.
I think
I have a hard
we-
time following it. I really do.
I think we as like smarter wrestling fans want to so badly believe that everything is a work, or even like a worked shoot, that things like CM Punk's tirade, like.
Yeah.
But
Well,
at the end of the day, to determine if something is a work or a shoot, for those of you in the audience, the idea here is is this still talking about a match down the line? Because that's always going to be the main idea of even a
Yeah.
worked shoot. You think of like Paul Heyman's worked shoot where he was talking, like, shitting on Vince McMahon about what he did in ECW, where, like, oh no, we're not going to compete, and then he did, and then Taz comes out and chokes him out at the end. Like, that's a worked shoot, because that is talking about, that is real feelings Paul Heyman has towards Vince, but it is still, at the end of the day, selling a match down the line. It was selling the match at Invasion, I think.
Yeah, and nothing about how the path to CM Punk winning the world title indicated going back after Adam Page. It didn't indicate anything going after Kenny Omega. He just came back. Like, there's been no build. What's Punk going to do against the Bucks? He doesn't have a tag team partner. Also,
doesn't have one anymore.
Is it worth it being a shoot if you make your own fucking company look bad?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, with MJF, there's a bit of believability because you understand that he crosses the line.
Mm-hmm.
So when he shit talks the company, that feels perfectly natural for him. But like when it's not even like on a real televised thing, when it's on like the YouTube like media stream afterwards,
it's where all of these dirt sheets that he's talking about are all there. All of them are recording him.
But then like unprovoked going after Colt Cabana, it's like it's like I think Punk just fucking lost it for some reason. Like I think he was just tired of whatever question was asked and just fucking lost his mind.
And he just decided to snap for no reason on everybody around him, you know, and yeah, it does embarrass the company because it really comes off unprofessional as hell. And it does.
Tony Khan's not a pro wrestler, and I doubt he's an actor, and he's never wanted to be an on-screen personality. The look on his face is genuine, like, fucking confusion to what Punk is saying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, is this a work or is this a shoot? Because this feels like it is detrimental to Punk as an asset.
It is.
To talk like this.
And I feel like a lot of his fan base are really enable him also. Okay, they get up and they defend him at every opportunity they get. You know, I caught a little bit of flack in the wrestling group by saying, you know, how much of a problem he is everywhere he goes. Okay, but it's like, you guys are fans of this guy, but you can't really bring yourself to call him out on some of the shit that he does. And making your company look bad. He's done this in WWE before, and people in WWE was like, "Oh, yeah, this sounds like the guy we were around back then."
What was the quote? It was somebody asked Triple H how he felt that AEW signed CM Punk, and his response is, "He's their problem now."
Yeah,
and then like all of this shit started happening.
That's all you need to know, right there.
What was it? Fox for SmackDown. They wanted to get CM Punk as one of their like post-show like analysis guys for like the post-show, and WWE aggressively went against their fucking network people to not have him on that show. And it's like there's just like this taint for CM Punk now. It's like even WWE's like, we will fight our own network to not have this guy here. Like,
it's really just a matter of everybody knows what they're getting into when dealing with CM Punk now.
Tony Khan did not. You wanted CM Punk, you got the ego. And the thing is, if this is a work, and it's this result of this bizarre long-term storytelling of Eddie Kingston calling CM Punk out on his bullshit, and then Adam Page calling out CM Punk on his bullshit, saying he's trying to protect the company from him. And then you get this outbreak. I'm like, is Tony Khan this much of a madman to like let this be a thing?
He's not that intelligent. Like,
and that's
love Tony Khan. He's not that intelligent.
I don't think he's that confident.
Mm-hmm.
Like he might. Like I feel like he's smart enough to do it. I don't think he's that confident to think he can do it successfully.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't tell his other guys about it, and the Bucks and Kenny go to talk to CM Punk about it because like, hey, you just shit talked all of us. The thing that gets me out of that whole story though is that Kenny just basically went in there to get a dog out of the situation.
Not
and then
any
got
dog.
bit.
CM Punk's dog.
CM Punk's dog, because he was in the locker room and then got bit by Ace Steel.
He got bit and he got his hair pulled, which probably in any other situation would sound like a kink event, but
I'm like, this is the weird. I'm like, a story like this can only occur in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
But then, but see, it's like, again, you're probably right. It's that mentality of like, is this a work? Because then they brought in the third-party investigators and they suspended everybody. You know, Christopher Daniels, Nakazawa was there, Pat Buck was there. They suspended all of them until the investigation's over. And they said, we're bringing in a third-party investigator to interview people who saw the event but were not involved. And the first person on that list is MJF. And I'm like, could this tie into the CM Punk story with him? I'm like, that's why I'm like, is my brain like thinking that all of this is a work?
We want so badly to believe when sometimes people are just shitty. Sometimes people are just bad people, and we need to like acknowledge that.
Because a part of my mind's also like, MJF wins the world title, and his night is ruined by a returning CM Punk. After this whole interview,
AEW is turning us into conspiracy theorists.
I'm
not sure if that's a good or bad thing.
It's probably
we're gonna have the board behind us. Like
it's
this.
probably a bad. It's probably a bad.
All the
thing.
rubber bands and shit.
So yeah, it's probably a bad thing. But it feels like the '80s again in a way, and it's weird to say that in this age of social media, because even in this age of social media, it still doesn't feel fake or real. Like it's this weird middle ground, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But on the topic of dirt sheets, I guess moving on from that whole AEW kerfuffle, these dirt sheets have no idea what they're talking about because the Fiend did not come back at Clash at the Castle.
He did not.
They've been saying that since like Hell in a Cell last year.
So all the dirt sheets going into Clash were the Fiend's coming back, Braun Strowman's coming back tonight, Sasha, Naomi are coming back, and instead we got Solo Sikoa. So... And
look, they've been trying to get Solo Sikoa for a hot minute. I'm glad they finally did it.
This wasn't the place. This was the night that I think McIntyre deserved to win.
He's already won it though.
You set it up in his country though. Like this is just WWE rules, I guess. They're in his hometown, so he's going to lose.
Yeah. But also like it's a much better story for like McIntyre's established. He can go and win the title whenever he wants, and it makes sense. Yeah. But I think they're waiting for somebody to come back, maybe Cody, to win it for the first time. And that's the person who's going to take it off of Roman. And I don't think it's going to be a 2-time champion or an established champion. I think it's going to be someone who's going to win it for the first time, maybe even solo.
And I think if we go back to the first episode where we had X on, I made the bet that I bet this is in Cody's contract that he's the one to dethrone Roman, and the injury is just a wrench thrown into the plan.
Yeah.
But then there were headlines earlier this week saying that the plan is for Reigns to hold the titles until WrestleMania for a match with The Rock. And I'm like, you're going to commit that much time to this like drying out story that people are already getting tired of? Like, I think the more interesting story for the bloodline is whatever's going on with Jimmy and Sammy. Like, Sami Zayn is the best part of Roman Reigns' story right now. Because it's like, oh, cool, we're going to go on pay-per-view. Roman's going to win for some bullshit reason.
But I think that's leading. But I think it's leading ultimately to Kevin and Sammy dethroning the Usos, because I feel like that's the direction they're going right now. Well, minus this whole stuff with Austin Theory. I would think that'd be a smart direction to go with Kevin and Sammy, because it would be, those two lifelong Canadian friends, dethroning the Usos after the Usos pretty much are going to out Sammy from the bloodline. That's coming. Okay, we're probably only maybe 2 or 3 weeks away.
They got Solo, and they can kick Sammy out now.
Yeah. So exactly that's pretty much the reason why he's there. So,
and on top of that, you have Killer Cross ringside at Clash of the Castle. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't do anything at all.
He just looks menacing.
And then he comes back the next night and interferes in the main event to choke out McIntyre, setting up their feud.
Yeah.
So you've already taken both of them out of the title picture into a feud with each other. And it's like,
I'm okay with that.
It's like, I don't know who, like, is this just like the plan and Trips has to just follow this plan? because
I don't think that's. I don't think that's what it is. I think they're legitimate. I think this is legitimately like this is what Tripp's plan is, and it's like moving along. I think any long-term storytelling they would have had with in the Vince is gone. I think it's.
Yeah.
I think this is all by Triple H's design. As he's not even the head of creative anymore. He's above that.
yeah.
He got promoted. He got promoted in this month and a half. That's how good he's been.
He got promoted like twice this month.
Yeah.
But just the stuff that has come after Clash at the Castle has been very good. We've gotten a fully
Yes.
formed Imperium back.
Imperium came out, yeah.
And
Finally.
the full team, they're great. They're putting Sheamus is just continually proving how good of a wrestler he has always been. And just
We've
people
known
have
this
just
for years.
never
We've been-
people just like, oh, he's always just a mid-card guy. It's like, no, he was in the best
He
tag
wa-
team with Cesaro.
He was in the
Like-
best tag team with Cesaro. I said this off when we were like chatting about it, but I was there when he won his very first WWE championship at TLC. And everyone was like, "Oh no, that looked like the dirt sheets that were like, oh, that was a botch. It wasn't planned, but they had to go with it." I'm like, no, that was planned. I watched it happen.
Yeah.
It was complete. The angle I had, it was completely planned. That shit was meant to happen. Sheamus was supposed to beat Cena that day, clean. Well, as clean as you can in a tables match.
Yeah. And it's
Like he can go.
and you have the announcement that Triple H has no plans on using Gable Stevenson. Good.
Good.
Braun's back. Looking great, by the way. Like,
Braun
he
looks
slammed down.
great.
he looks in great shape right now.
He looks great. I'm taking the wind out of his sails just a little bit because like when
It's
he
Braun.
interfered in that like that tag match, like he fucking slipped and then like charged
Yo,
after.
So I saw that
remember
gif.
that.
He ran around, he tripped. Good recovery though to get back up and still put somebody through the
Yeah, no.
barrier, but it's just
it was-
like, God.
it was-
It's so funny because you just see this big man just like running and then like disappear behind the
Whoop.
barricade and then pop back up and hit somebody.
Which was great.
I saw some fan cam of that angle and he just fucking bolts like and then like gets up again like ugh.
Yeah, and I mean, we got Gargano back right into a feud with Austin Theory, building off their NXT story together.
Mhm.
If it was Triple H's idea to bring Dexter Lumis in, it's exactly what Raw needed. Dexter Lumis is the best part of Raw right now for me. Did
He
you
hasn't
see
even
the?
wrestled yet.
He hasn't wrestled. Did you see the cage match with the Miz?
Yes, where he's
Where
like pops out.
He
just
stops and
pops out
he
from the
stops and
ring.
he's looking down, and then the camera angle change to just show Dexter Lumis laying under the ring, looking at him, and I'm like, this is incredible. I love Dexter. Like I love Dexter in NXT, and that's like he's just proving like he can be a great comedy wrestler also.
Dexter Lumis being they were doing this thing last night. I know you said you didn't watch Raw. So last night they had this whole thing where Miz and Maurice were going to like a premiere or something. And they were doing an interview and the interviewer was talking about Dexter Lumis and Miz was like, "No, don't say his name. Don't say his name. We're not talking about this. This interview is over." And he like leaves. And the camera turns as he's leaving. Like the car takes off. Camera turns around. There's Dexter Lumis in the Miz's house, and he pulls up. He like has a drawing of the Miz and Maurice and their kid. It's just, mwah, it's great.
It's
And I
been
love how Maurice points out that they have like so much security around the house that there's no way he can get in. And he just comes in like Solid Snake out of nowhere, probably like through a vent or some shit. And he just holds up a picture. I'm like, this dude is gold on this roster.
so
very good.
the two moments that it's like, because I liked him as a wrestler, and then
Mhm.
the two moments that really sold me about what they're doing with him on Raw is when Miz is just talking to Ciampa and walking, and you see him just in the corner of the screen as like a security guard, and then they do the stop and like turn around, and it's just another,
turn around
it's a
and someone
different
else.
guy
It's-
there entirely. And
I
then
love the
when
creative direction they've
Miz's-
been doing with them.
when Miz is running away and gets into his car, and the light in the back seat lights up, and Dexter Lumis is in the back of the SUV. And
Lights don't work that way, but that was a really cool creative decision.
And then during the match where he's like, Ciampa, look, it's Dexter. And Ciampa turns around, but Dexter's already gone. So it just seems like the Miz is crazy right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this feels like an NXT thing. And this is like the best like debut of a wrestler who hasn't wrestled yet. And I'm like, I can't wait to see what happens like next, like whatever feud he moves on to. It's just gonna be so interesting. Like he's such a great like character wrestler.
All right.
Yeah, he's
give me
he
just a
just kind of has
sec,
this.
real quick.
Huh?
It stopped my pizza again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're. So I'm gonna cut back in since you're back now.
Yeah.
We were talking about like I don't think this Dexter Loomis stuff works if it's anybody but the Miz.
Oh yeah, the Miz is
Like-
a very good like foil to like anything at this point.
Because the Miz is like he's just committing to it. He's
Yeah.
like, and it's just like he's like, you know what? I've been with this company long enough. I have job security. They want me to be funny with this guy. I'll be a fucking hilarious.
And he's just so good at playing a comedically cowardly villain. He is.
He's so good at like the improvisational yes and of like yes and this happens. Like
Yeah.
Improv, like he's so good at, he's been good at that for so long, which is wild because he used to be this jittering dude in jorts.
Yeah, and I think what's great is that any big name star that has come into WWE in the last few years, they trust the Miz to be that first guy to put him over. Cody came back, beat
Cody.
Rollins, instantly into a feud with the Miz, and then it picked up the Rollins feud again. Dexter Loomis terrorizing the Miz. It's like I think every big name that gets moved up or debuts is going to have to go through the Miz because they trust him to be able to put
He is
on a
that
good
guy.
feud. He is that guy. And I think that's
You-
what Miz will be known for, you know, by the time he retires or something like that, is he's a good character wrestler who knew what the assignment was and could pull it
Because they
off.
know when you put Miz in that role, he is going to shine and he's going to make that person look good no matter what. And he's gonna go to extremes to do it at times.
He's
Yeah.
only 41 years old.
He's still got
Like
some longevity.
he's got
Yeah.
some time. Like he doesn't look a day over like mid 30s.
No, he looks good.
He looks really good. He's got plenty of time left.
I hope they do move away from his and Ciampa being a tag team, though. I think Ciampa deserves like at least a solo run. Because I
Or
think he's
with
getting.
Gargano.
I think just bring it back to him and Gargano again. Like, just give us
Oh
that.
yeah, run that back.
Run it back as a
They've
tag.
both used each other's signature moves in matches now.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and yeah, just so much history. I think Gargano made a good decision not instantly signing with somebody. I would have loved to see him in AEW just because of the depth of their roster when it comes to names. But I think he's going to be handled just well because he is one of Triple H's kids, as people would say.
Yes.
So I think he's going to
Like-
get treated extra special moving into the main roster.
My favorite thing about when people talk about, say, for example, Sheamus, who was this, they're like, oh, Sheamus is a mid-card person at best. Like, Sheamus was also one of Triple H's kids.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's the
so, like, they don't know.
And that's the thing. We've said it before. Your company is improved having a stronger mid card. So I mean, look at AEW's mid card and just look how fucking stacked that roster is. I mean, it's a great mid card thing. So any matches you get, people are going to know the names of. People are going to know it's going to be a great fucking match. And I think that's something that WWE lacks. Like they have a very strong like title picture, but the mid card needed improvement, and that's why I think people like Dexter Loomis and Gargano, Imperium showing up, like that's filling out this mid card that's kind of been in need for a few years. You could really trust people like Rollins for a bit when he wasn't in the title picture. Dolph Ziggler is always somebody who's going to exist in that mid card and know what the assignment is. I mean, just him and Miz for the Intercontinental title a few years ago. That whole
That was
series of
amazing.
matches was just absurd. And it's like, so you have these guys who know the assignment, but you're also going to get these new guys who are going to be put into it in prep to get them to the title picture whenever
Yes.
the Roman Reigns experiment ends. So
That's not like, I would say that has stopped becoming an experiment.
he's getting the John Cena territory.
Yeah, but it's not an experiment anymore. It's just what he is. He is the guy.
He is the guy, but like you
I
don't need
really do.
you don't need a second John Cena.
Now, I think that whole thing, I think the tribal chief thing is running its course.
Yeah.
All right, and it's getting to the point where people are like, "Okay, we get it now. Can we get some new champions?"
I just
He's
okay,
had the
maybe it's
titles
time to
for
move
what, 2
somebody
years
up.
at this point?
my issue is people are going to get tired of seeing Roman win matches by help. And it's going to hurt his credibility for a lot of it. So eventually people are going to be like, man, he's not even beating people. You know, he has a goon squad.
He has a family member tucked away somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Fatu family. If Solo Sikoa runs his course too, they're going to be like, all right, bring in another one. Just
Right? Hey! How many of his cousins do we have running around
doesn't
here?
Rikishi have like
I'm
6?
one of 'em.
Doesn't Rikishi have like 6 kids? Like
He has so many
Oh,
kids.
we have 3 of them right now in the company.
Yeah.
I just love it though, because that was one of my favorite Twitter interactions. I think this last week is Rikishi tweeting. It's like, I got 3 sons in the company. So proud. And then Sammy replied, more like 4, right?
More like 4. Technically 4.
It's like 4. I'm like, God damn it, Sammy.
Oh, that's so good.
Sami Zayn knows the assignment too. Like, it's just, it's so funny, but it's like, I don't know if it's just I'm in that boat of I'm just getting tired of seeing my world champion win with interference.
Sure.
I feel like that's all the WWE title picture has been the last few years, even before Roman. It's just been people holding the title because of interference or disqualifications or cheap shots. I'm like, just give me a definitive world championship win. Just next pay-per-view, just let Roman beat somebody without any interference. Just show me you guys can do that.
Just
Like,
let him manhandle somebody, you know, just make it as balanced of the match as possible. But I would just rather him manhandle somebody and win a match. So it's be like, oh, he's
I feel
still
like
he's still strong enough to hold both of those titles, you know. And
I
he
think the
doesn't need
last
to pull a
time
cousin
that
from
happened,
somewhere.
I think the last time that happened was like against Jey Uso actually. Like
Yeah.
they're matching Hell in the Cell.
Yeah,
I think that, or was it Jimmy? It was one of them. It was one of the Usos.
it
I
was
think it was
Jay.
Jay. I think it was Jay. I think that was the last time he really won like clean. That was a I Quit match.
yeah, because I mean, the match with Lesnar ended with interference. Clash at the Castle ended with interference. And I think that was like, what, Roman and Brock 9? I don't remember how Roman and Brock 8 ended. So
I'm so done with Brock Lesnar. Like, please stop.
I think
Please,
they're done
please,
with.
I'm
I think
begging
they're
you.
done with Brock too. Like,
Yeah.
I think Brock's done with WWE. I think it's like
Vince
it's like
ain't here anymore. You guys aren't going to treat me like I deserve.
yeah. It's like I love having a monster as much as the next guy, but he just legit looks unsafe every time he goes in there, and I'm terrified for whoever's in the ring with him.
The last Brock Roman match. Is it sad that I think the best part of that match wasn't even the wrestling? It was the fucking microphone throw, and Roman caught it one-handed.
Where he
Right.
caught it.
And it's just like the
Like
little
this-
cocky wink that he gave to him too. It's like, I think
was
that's
a
the
good
best part of
build-up.
the match, because we were talking about it when it happened, when he bulldozed the ring and lifted it up. I was instantly like, I would have sued WWE if I paid for that ringside seat and I couldn't see the rest of the match. Like, it was
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't imagine how pissed off those people were.
Especially if there were seats over $1,000. Yeah.
They're
Oh,
like
those
$800
pay-per-view
seats.
seats are $800 to $1,200
Yeah. So if I'm
Easy.
sitting
I get it.
ringside and suddenly my view of, because the entire last part of that match took place in that corner. So it's like, I can't see the match. I'm sitting right here. I gotta look at the fucking screen. Like, bro,
as
I
someone
would
who's-
have complained
as
so
as somebody
hard.
who's sat in those as somebody who's been in those ringside seats, yeah, it can. If they're on the other side of the ring, you're fucked.
Yeah, it's just like, god damn, man. Like, I can't
Even the row-
imagine the bullshit they had to go through.
Even the rows like directly above where ringside is have a way better view.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we never get ringside seats when we go wrestling here. We're usually a row or two back, or I'm usually up on like a higher raised like level to see it better.
I like being on the row above ringside because I think that's the best view where it's the closest to the ring, but also it's like it's right there.
You don't have
right,
people standing up in front of you.
Yes,
And you can
that
see
gets-
everything.
Yeah.
I did that with off topic a little bit. I did that with a Metallica concert where I was
Nice.
right above the standing area or in the seats. So I could watch them. It's my favorite band of all time since I was like 3. But you know, it's just my favorite place to be is just right above where everyone's standing.
Yeah. So I think this whole episode can be summed up to the dirt sheets need to not get one source. Like, and not just like instantly report it. Because the thing
Or
is,
these fake accounts just really need to stop lying.
because it's like, hey,
Yeah.
we're reporting all these returns, we're reporting all of this drama that we heard about. So it's not even like a thing. It's like, hey, we heard this happened. And now they're like, hey, we're reporting that the plan is Roman to hold the titles until WrestleMania. And it's like, is that from like a one guy who told you that? Like,
Yeah.
so if it's like, it's stuff like that, it's like, if I know Roman's going to hold the title until WrestleMania, I'm not going to bother watching the main event of any pay-per-view. Because it's like, oh, cool, it's going to be the best match in the world. Somebody's going to interfere, something dumb's going to happen, Roman's going to retain.
And
It's
on
like,
top
why
of
would
that,
I watch that if I could just predict it? You know,
and
like,
to continue your point, I don't think Roman versus The Rock needs the titles. That is a big enough match, name-wise, that you can just sell throughout the next several months until you get to WrestleMania, and that will still sell out. It does not need the championships.
and that's even if
don't
The
know.
Rock agrees.
Yeah.
Did Rock Hogan was for the undisputed title, wasn't it?
No,
No, that
Really?
was that was just like the Battle of Legends or something. I think they called it.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
'cause I
then
think
to your point.
the title match that year was Triple H versus Jericho for the undisputed WWF Championship.
Okay. Fair
And
enough.
then, what was it? We had the 3. What was it? The 3 Cena Hogan matches.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That series, it was like, hey, that didn't need the titles either.
Yeah.
So it's like The Rock is
Well,
a
Cena
big enough
Rock.
name. Yeah, Cena Rock. That's what it was. It's like The Rock's a big enough name. Roman just going up against him is going to be a big enough fucking headline. Like,
It's going to be enough to sell the pay-per-view.
let your
For two-
other titles mean something, because right now the world title feels like the Intercontinental title and the US title. They feel like your world titles right now. Because at least they're being defended.
I will say it's one thing I do like about having a champion for so long because you think of the champions in AEW, they've switched at most like a year. Like
Yeah, they
it's
usually
been
run
a
for
year
about
and
they
they
usually
swap
run
out.
for about a year. It's just
And
they
I-
run just long enough for you to get tired of it. And
I
just long enough
I think
to
that's what was happening
progress
with
the
Kenny
story.
Omega. I think that was
Yeah.
happening with Kenny Omega towards the end. I was like, I started getting tired. But
Yeah, because I mean he was
I will
everybody's
say-
champion.
Yeah. The belt armor and all that. But I will say the thing I do like about what WWE does with at least with Roman, I do like having longer reigning champions because I think that does make your belt look strong. Because you at the end of the day, yes, the last couple ones have been with the help of the bloodline, but like when you look at it, when Roman's reign is all said and done, I made a joke there. You're not gonna look back and be like, oh yeah, well he won because the Usos kept interfering in his matches. You're gonna be like, oh, he had a title reign for over a year. That's impressive.
But I think also if you're going to do something like this, it's got to set the precedence. Like if Cody finally gets the title, don't leave it on him for 8 months and then take it off of him. It's just one of those things. Like if you want it to feel like it means something, then it has to mean something for every
That's
champion.
for everybody. Yes,
And
I
it's like,
agree.
but that's the thing. It's like, I think a year is long enough because that's by about the time in AEW that I start getting tired of a champion. But that's enough time for them to progress a good, like, competitor story. And it's like, I don't think I'm going to enjoy the world title picture if everybody's holding it for like a year and a half in WWE.
Yeah, it
It's
just
like-
gets a little stale after a while. You know,
Because it's always going to be a screwy finish to a pay-per-view. It's always that's the thing. Like, you gotta at least make it believable. Like if you present let's say Cody Rhodes, in a way that he feels unstoppable and a pay-per-view is a legitimate win instead of a screwy finish, which WWE is notorious for,
Yeah.
then that's the thing. It's like, that's kind of why I'm like, I can hit or miss these pay-per-views because I know it's going to be a screwy finish on the main event. Like,
And then the one that isn't is the one you're gonna miss, and it's gonna be like, oh God, I missed that match.
yeah. And you can hope that it's a legitimate win for the champion, you
Mhm.
know, with some time behind the belt. So
I think a good way to think about it is, at some point there's gonna be a match where it's gonna be like, the bloodline's barred from ringside. I think when you see that match, I think that match is gonna be the banger.
yeah, when it's finally the one-on-one.
Yes.
And
When it's like Hell in a Cell, or it's like the Usos are barred from ringside, or whatever the case may be.
but
I
also
think
it's
that's the
like,
match you want to look out for.
it's just
Either that
the-
or a steel cage match.
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
the last thing is just like, quit making your baby faces look like idiots. You know Roman has the bloodline. Why didn't McIntyre hire Sheamus and them to be at ringside with him? It's like, you know you're coming in to a multiple person group, and yet you're still coming by yourself. It's just like, God damn it. Like, quit making your baby faces be stupid. Like, that's just make them smart. It's just like, it's one of those like little pet peeves. It's like, they know there's at least a 3-on-1 in this situation. And it's just like, it happens all the time. And it's just like, God damn it. Why do you feel so stupid?
At least they're not playing hot potato between Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing, like, I want wrestling to get back to that age of these titles are held and they mean something and they can define a run. I think the weakest run so far in AEW has been the thing with CM Punk and Moxley because of the injuries. That was probably the weakest time. And before that, it was Page because they just seemed to lose creative direction with him after he got the title.
It's like they didn't plan for it. It's almost like they just let Page coast after his title win. You
Well,
know,
I think
when they could have just added more to the start. They could have just added more to his title run and made it mean something. They just
They
kind of
pro-
coasted off.
They really needed him to win because Kenny was for sure out.
Yeah,
So they needed somebody really quick.
yeah,
And I think they never really had creative for him.
I
I
think
don't
they
think they, I don't think they
had.
planned that far in advance.
I think they had two plans, but I think the people that they planned for him to go were also out with injuries by that point.
Yeah.
So it's like you're just kind of having this champion who's coasting until it's time to, you know, get back into it. I think he defended it once during his run. So
He defended it a couple of
A
times.
couple of times.
oh yeah, he had the TV matches and everything too.
Yeah, he had a
So-
bunch of TV matches. It was pay-per-view matches that he didn't
and
really have.
him and Takashita need to run it back because that match was fucking insane.
Mhm.
Takashita needs to get a titles win at some point. Give him the All Atlantic when Pac's done with it.
Takeshita just needs to come back to the U.S. in general. That
Yeah.
dude is a star. He is a superstar in the making. You know, that guy is like the best parts of Kenny Omega and like fucking Kazuchika Okada
Yeah.
all rolled into one.
Yeah.
And
Well,
he's young. So
Yeah, I think it was like somebody pointed out, like after his first TV matches, the dirt sheets were like, WWE has interest in him, and I'm like, yeah, of course they do, because they don't want anybody else getting this guy.
hell no.
But
I can't wait for him to come back, man. That dude is amazing.
Did you
Yeah.
guys see that? Kind of off topic, but also somewhat on topic from what we've been talking about. Did you guys see that one tweet from Kenta, who was like,
oh yeah, the
the
worst,
worst part of wrestling was I couldn't use the finisher that I invented in
For 4 years.
for 6 years.
yeah, like what was that? The entire time he was in NXT, he wasn't allowed to use the GTS.
Yeah.
You're right.
So it's just like, why? Because CM Punk uses it. You guys want to get CM Punk trauma by Kenta using that move?
And the crazy part was there was one time where he did use it in NXT, but it was at a live event. And the minute he used it, it went viral all over Twitter. So I was like, why
Yeah.
not just let him use his own finish?
That's his finisher. He
His finisher.
invented it.
Just let him use it.
It's like,
The crowd ate that shit up. So I was like,
Yeah,
man,
they did.
do
yeah,
it. Let him use his finisher. But now I don't know, man.
but-
That's just one of those things WWE's really weird about, you know?
Yeah, and I'm hoping that stuff like that changes. We've already seen a few changes with Triple H leading
Everyone
stuff.
getting their first names back.
People
Woo!
are getting their full names back. Words are being allowed. It's just more like freedom and more, I would say, just more believability, because everybody's like, why can't you just say wrestling? Like, you guys are wrestling. You can call yourself sports entertainment, but you are wrestling.
It is okay to be both.
It was all focus tested.
Yeah, but we're about at that time. Deca, you have stuff to do.
I have stuff to do, but like if y'all have any like other thoughts, I'm willing to stay. Like this isn't a hard cut. This is like I got things to do, but also if we're having a hot conversation, I don't mind.
I guess the last thing I want to rant about is people who don't matter in this industry anymore always voicing their opinions. Like,
oh, you mean wrestlers from like 30 years ago?
Vince Russo needs to shut the fuck up.
So Disco.
And Disco Inferno, it's like, the thing is, like, Vince Russo keeps talking about all this shit. It's like, hey, why aren't you doing it like this, man? I'm like, hey, Vince, need to remind you that you're responsible for 2 of the worst periods in wrestling. One with WCW and then one with TNA. It's like, hey, just shut the fuck up. And then you got Jim Cornette, who just
Jim Cornette
he just hates fun.
Jim Cornette is the Alex Jones of wrestling.
Oh my god, he is.
Oh my god.
I hate that analogy, but he is. It's just like,
yeah,
he's like, I listen to him and I like his history. I like his insight. I like hearing these old stories from like the 80s and like the thought process behind it. Like, I like the history of it. But yeah, it's not that anymore. And he wants he's
just an angry old man.
He wants it to not be modern wrestling anymore. And he's just disconnected from it that it's just like, it's not wrestling. It's like, it's wrestling because everybody knows the truth now.
He's just become an encyclopedia of shitty takes constantly. Yeah. That's what he's become. And I know he's getting a lot of, traction from it because he has a lot of people, who follow him on Twitter over it. But that's literally his shtick now. It's just rolling out all the shitty takes he has in his fucking mind.
Are you live tweeting this? I just get a notification on my watch from Twitter. Curse take from the Without Podcast Network recording. Jim Cornette is the Alex Jones of wrestling, mentioned by Decavolty. I'm like, are you live tweeting?
Great, now you're dating the podcast. Like, but no, like Jim Cornette incites hatred and like vitriol and says the worst things about people.
Yeah.
And like he just people just need to check him and be like, the future is now old, man.
The future is now old, man. But it's like, it's him, it's Russo, it's Disco Inferno, it's fucking Bubba Ray in recent months. It's just like, guys, this isn't the fucking 80s or 90s anymore. Everybody knows that this shit is fake, but they want to be entertained.
I think my least favorite one is in recent, like even with Jim Cornette as the anomaly here, who's like the black hole of like wrestling content. I think Kevin Nash has been like a really bad one in the past, because he just says like he'll just like smoke a joint and say that like the worst shit ever, like the most off the wall shit ever.
Oh no, Kevin Nash's demeanor's kind of changed on social media lately, so I like him now. I've always liked Kevin
now,
Nash.
But like during shoot promos, he's been like the worst.
It's just, God, I hate trying to decipher Vince Russo rants, because if I put it into a Word document and remove the word bro, I lose half the word count. So it's
like
just
a Rick and Morty episode description.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, bro, it's like, bro, man, you can't be doing this, bro. It's like, this is how we did it, like in WCW, bro. I'm like, bro, just stop saying it every fucking 3 words.
The start and the beginning and end of every Vince Russo sentence begins with bro. Okay,
Matt Riddle moment.
Yeah,
I'm gonna actually look up something real quick. So from 8 days ago, Vince Russo destroys former Raw Women's Champ in epic rant. He's talking about Nikki Ash, who I really hope goes back to being Nikki Cross. I don't like I think the superpower things run.
I think it's run its course, yeah.
I love Nikki Cross, man. She was such a crazy oddball character, and I loved it.
I think every time it's like wrestling veteran goes on tirade about current WWE champion. It's like, I fucking hate these articles.
But like they're going to start. I can't find one of his rants. But then like the black hole is like starting to devour itself too, because then you got Cornette burying Russo, and you got Russo burying Cornette, and then they're both talking shit about Bubba Ray.
Yes,
It's just
let
like
them fight.
It's just like they're all starting. It's like these are just guys yelling in a corner. Like this is not only Disco Inferno, who was a C tier wrestler at best in WCW. You got Vince Russo, who is responsible for 2 of the worst periods of wrestling because of his creative inability. You got Cornette, who after the 80s was pissed that it's not the same, and now he's an old man yelling at Cloud.
Jim Cornette's claim to fame was having a tennis racket on live TV, and that was it.
He was a good manager on TV, but that was when people thought it was legitimate. And because he can't act that way anymore without, I guess, full repercussions, because everybody knows that that's now like an act, so he can't just be a dick to people.
Sure.
It's like, it's just, they're starting to like devour themselves. And I'm like, why would anybody want any input from you 3? Because you've almost you buried a company, which is why we're in this situation with WWE to begin with. And you haven't done anything of meaning since the 90s. And then he did book for TNA, but he was at it with Russo during that time too, I think.
I think so. You heard my Jim Cornette is the Alex Jones. I think Vince Russo is the Hideo Kojima of wrestling, because he needs that guy to be like, "That's stupid. Stop that."
No, I would say Vince Russo is the like reverse Tommy Wiseau, whereas Tommy Wiseau jokes about it a lot and says like the room's a comedy, and he says, I'll let people believe that. Russo is the kind of guy who's like, yeah, man, I wrote it as a comedy. Like trying to
totally, yeah.
He's trying to seem like he's smarter than you. It's like, my wrestling's a joke. Oh, so you get it then. Like that's the kind of attitude I get from him.
You know who was really bad about that? Raven.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot of like 90s wrestlers and
there's a lot of they had their heyday in like WCCW or something.
And I mean, I love Jim Ross as a commentator, but even he's like at points like just burying the company he works for. Because he's like, these guys just don't understand that it's like, hey, people know wrestling's fake. Now let's make it about the theatrics. People aren't going to believe that this is a legitimate thing. Let's make them have fun while they're here.
It's just save it for the broadcast, right?
Yeah.
And I hate to break it to them, but wrestling has kind of been this way for like the last, 20 years or so. I remember going back watching some old stuff where he was wrestling with the Human Tornado, and he was doing all this kind of stuff where, he would just be dancing in the ring and the crowd would be going along with it. The shit's entertainment at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, we all know what this is.
That one gif I always see of Matt Seidel doing a slam dunk and then doing a hurricane rana on Human Tornado.
Like stupid shit been occurring in wrestling for 20 years now. Get over it. Okay.
It's like when WCW died and it was only WWF, you could tell like there was this slow gradual build to we don't give a shit. Because if the idea of wrestling being fake didn't hit you prior to Vince McMahon wrestling God, then you lasted longer than the rest of us.
and then pinning God.
God. And it's just like, I don't
know what to tell you, buddy.
I'm like, man, I understand like if this isn't your kind of thing, but this isn't your industry anymore.
I don't think anybody cares anymore. Nobody fucking cares anymore. They don't.
Like I said, the future is now, old man.
The future is now, old man. And I would say that to Russo's face. I'm like, bro, just shut the fuck up. Like, you've almost ruined 2 companies. You've ruined 1.5 companies.
1.5 is probably the best way to do that.
Because it was Russo that decided, hey, David Arquette would be a good world champion in WCW. So... But also, good on David Arquette for also realizing how stupid of an idea that fucking was. So, that man's still wrestling. He's in death matches recently. So, But yeah, I got nothing else to say. I think that's my tirade.
I think we're good there.
I think that's my final
That's a good-
tirade because those guys are like the evolved form of dirt sheet reporters. So
Yeah. They have just that much little bit of insider knowledge because they used to be in it.
yeah,
And they're pushing. It's the same it's the same thing with Meltzer and Alvarez. They used to be a part of the product, and
I
they're
don't
using
know.
like what little bit they know.
I don't know what Meltzer's deal is. The guy feels all over the place at times, and he's like reporting all these things as fact by like one unnamed source. And I'm
He's-
like, bro, you're a reporter. Like,
Investigative journalism has to do that, where they're like unnamed sources, but he's really sketch because in the past he's like doxed people and shit. Like,
yeah,
so like he's really sketch. I don't like him.
yeah. So it's just like, I love these shows that we do, but I really hope people don't start believing that we're some wrestling commentators.
We are not we are not journalists. We are only speculating.
We are three fans with a range of how much of a work is this mindsets.
We are three fans who, I don't know how long you guys have been watching, but I've been watching since I was like 8 or 9.
WCW. So fucking
Yeah,
I've been
so-
watching
'90s.
since WCW was the NWA. Well,
Collect-
back during the
so
NWA days.
So collectively about like 120 years, maybe.
collectively about
Yeah.
60 years of wrestling.
60.
I think
Not as old
collectively
as
about
our parents.
120-ish.
Yeah, so,
NWA, WCW was a long time
oh
ago.
god, the 90s
Yeah.
were like 30 years ago, weren't they? So
Yes.
Yeah. In
Yeah,
the 80s
so-
were 40 years ago.
yeah, I would say anywhere between 80 to 100 years, given all
Yeah.
our ages.
So yeah, we're old. But yeah, that like we don't know the inner workings. We're not
I just
claiming
want
to know the inner
I
workings.
just want believable stories. Like I just want
Yes.
stories that can feel real and also entertain me when they're in the ring.
I
Yes.
just want to be entertained. That's all I
Like-
want to be.
I
But-
want good match quality. I want
Yes.
good promos, and I think we're getting there with WWE. Actually.
We're getting to a nice equilibrium now because like if you
Yeah.
just want to watch more of like an indie style show, you watch AEW.
You want to watch a bunch of spots? Watch AEW. If you want to watch,
if you want to
like,
watch the big,
a
if you want to
more-
watch like the big names, and
Mm-hmm.
a higher production value, tune into
WWE.
WWE. And also, they're all on separate fucking days. So
I would make the argument that I think when during pay-per-views, not during Raw, because some of those matches are hit and miss still, but like during pay-per-views, I think WWE actually has better overall match
oh,
quality.
they deliver on pay-per-views recently. Even
Yes.
Big
recently,
time.
recently they've been delivering on their pay-per-views.
Yes.
So
But I think AEW overall, I think AEW as a whole has better match quality. But I think if you go just by pay-per-views, I think WWE has them beat.
yeah, it's just also I want pay-per-views to find a sweet spot in terms of time limits.
Yes.
Like, I understand it's like a special event, but I don't want to sit through 14 matches on either of your cards. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that just seems like a marathon for me.
It's
like
like-
AEW can really benefit from cutting it down to like
Not-
maybe 6-7 matches.
not every story has to pay off on the pay-per-view.
That's what you have those specials for that you do.
You can just do it on a whole weekday.
You
Just-
can do it on a Rampage. It's fine.
Or do it on one of those Saturday specials they have every now and then. You know, they have like a Battle of the Belt, so they could do it on Fighter Fest and shit like
If-
that. I mean,
Yeah.
if the story is good enough to deserve a pay-per-view spot. If it's just like a normal, like, here's a feud to get us through this month and get these two guys to their next feud, you can end it on a Friday. You
Yeah,
don't have
yeah.
to end it on the pay-per-view.
I don't think I think they legitimately think that every feud that they have is
Has to be
worthy
on
of
a
a pay-per-view
pay-per-view,
blow
and
off. Yeah.
But that's not the case for either show,
It's
and
not.
they need to stop.
It's
Yeah.
not at all the case.
Guarantee belts, guaranteed big payoffs for feuds, like long-running feuds. But if it's a feud that started in May and it ran through May and June and July and everything, you can just probably end that on a weekday show.
mhm.
It's like you don't have to end that on a pay-per-view and get everybody to their next thing, because here's what you can do. You can end the feud and then dedicate a small segment onto the pay-per-view to be like an interview with another wrestler, and then have one of those guys come in to set up a new feud. It's like you can get them onto your show still, you know?
I think surely there has to be a balance between like the WWE where they have a match and then they have like
a
2
backstage.
minutes of ads, and then the backstage segment, and then another match.
Yeah.
I think there's a balance between like match, and like match, ad, backstage, match.
Yeah.
There's some sort of balance we can work out here.
That is something that I like more about AEW's thing, because they're all it's their money. The amount of ads on an AEW show is minimal at best. So it's a good speedy just wrestling. But like sitting through WWE shows feels like a chore sometimes with all the ads between matches. I understand it's because of the live audience and like
so
getting the
disjointed
ring
live,
ready.
too.
Yeah. Like we were talking about
Really
in our last
disjointed.
wrestling one. The match starts, it goes to commercial, everybody stops wrestling. And then just walks around.
During pay-per-views when they run an ad, you see like people in the shadows like moving tables and shit.
Yeah, it's just like it's so
bizarre.
odd. It's surreal. And it's like if that doesn't tell you the wrestling's fake, I don't know what does. So but yeah, I got nothing else left to say.
Yeah,
I think we covered
I think that's that.
Clash of the Castle. We talked about the CM Punk kerfuffle, our thoughts on dirt sheets and the old men who need to stop.
The old men yelling at clouds.
I have one final short thought though.
Sure.
Look, I remember, all those times that we went through WWF during that long period where there was, WWF, WWE when there was one major show in North America. I never want to go back to that. Okay.
It's not good to have a monopoly.
It really isn't.
One company on TV, that's not a healthy industry. Because that's the thing. It's like you have all these other companies. People can go to other places to work.
Yeah. People, wrestlers still need jobs, and they're human beings. At the end of the day, they need jobs. We need plenty of jobs for them to go to. Okay, I don't want to see AEW fail. Yes, every wrestling company has its ups and downs. Currently, AEW's going through sort of a down period with a lot of drama and bullshit. But at the end of the day, I want to see this company survive. Because every company that survives like this makes pro wrestling so much better. It gives us options. It gives us flavor. It gives us somewhere to go to if we don't like certain things about another company. Okay? And all these dirt sheets and these people who just gradually come on, Twitter or socials and they shit talk AEW constantly. I'm like, seriously, at the end of the day, you really just need to grow the fuck up, man.
Yeah. Why do you want a monopoly?
Exactly.
Why do you want a monopoly?
I think the saying here is iron sharpens iron.
Yes. Competition breeds a better business.
Mm-hmm.
And you're already getting that. Like, I think even though he might never admit it, Triple H, when he took over, is like, okay, we're going to have to ring quality.
We're going to have to kick it in high gear. Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, it just makes pro wrestling so much better to have multiple companies run by multiple people. Okay, because if we go back to that period, it's gonna fizzle out again. Okay, we tried to lift, Impact up during that time. Fortunately,
Mr. So fucked it up.
Everything it got fucked up. I want AEW, WWE, and everything else to succeed. Hell, shit. I want a third major pro wrestling company, at some point in the next 5 years, because that would be amazing.
TNA's just in the corner, like TNA's just in the corner, like flipping you off.
Take that spot.
Impact's just like, okay, well, fuck us, I guess.
Impact is just like, am I a joke to you?
Yeah, it's like we've survived for 20 years.
It's been around 20 years and people barely notice. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just.
But that's pretty much all I wanted to get off of my chest, And please, for the love of God, stop listening to fake Twitter bots. Okay. Like fucking there's only like 20% of people on Twitter who are even real. It's
what X and I say, like you can enjoy multiple companies. WWE does not pay you for your brand loyalty.
Like unless they do, and then let me know.
In case they do, yes. But just enjoy wrestling. The more wrestling you have, more wrestling than ever with AEW now existing. Just enjoy it. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Like, what is wrong with y'all? Seriously.
Well,
but
that is a
we have
good place
to
cut.
We have to cut it for here. Deca has a Star Wars.
I am now running late.
You are now running late to a Star Wars game to play, so we're gonna end it here. As always, subscribe to us on YouTube. Check out the Spotify channel. That should also be down in the link. I am looking into getting us on more services. So if you listen to something like Stitcher, that might be showing up there as well. And then if it does, we'll get a better outro, probably a scripted one.
Oh yeah.
Check out Dummies and D20s. It is a new channel brought to you by this group. We have a few players from Deca's D&D game and myself playing in it, so that's cool. That should be in the description below as well.
Yes.
And X, always fun to have you onto the show. I'm feeling like we should probably just set up a second podcast on this channel just for wrestling.
Wrestling podcast.
Just a
Bullshit
weekly,
keeps happening every week.
just a weekly wrestling podcast, but trying to figure out a day to record that because I think it's like, was it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are all wrestling nights?
I might actually die.
Yeah,
Right.
so, but we always enjoy having you on the show. And as
I'm always
for-
happy to be on here, man.
And as for that, I guess we will close out there. So thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.